entertain this minute for mission this morning, let me start off by saluting the men of Trinity, because it really is the celebration that men and connection to the community is clearly at the base of what makes any community successful. So I say to you, Trinity men, you look marvelous. So the phrase of the day really is WWAD. WWAD. You know, today as we celebrate this Community Day in memory of the late Reverend Archie Hargrave, we recognize that people come into our lives at a time that's important, but they also come into our lives for a reason significantly as important. So how would we know that a young man that was born in Mount Vernon, Texas, who went to Jarvis Christian College, began to teach math, and later went on to sell Yellow Pages, would find his way to McCormick Seminary, to which he achieved his degree, but would come to Montclair, New Jersey in 1986 to become pastor of Trinity Presbyterian Church. Clearly, at a significant time and for a very significant reason. And sometimes God just compartmentalizes the time that you share, that he shares his blessings with you. And for Archie, you know, we all hear the story about the angels who come. And I absolutely believe that he not only came, but he left something for us. When he came to this church in '86, absolutely dedicated. But there were three words that describes who this gentleman is. And the three words are integrity, vision, and purpose. And that's the way he lived his life. You've heard people already talk today about the time that he's done remarkable things, or things that you would not expect, or things that you clearly would expect that he delivered on. And I think those are important. But when he came to this church, for example, and under his leadership, the membership doubled. There's an endowment now that this church enjoys because of his vision and what he saw. He was a catalyst to bring young families into this church. And I think we are where we are today in very much because of who he was in the 13 years that he pastored this church. But his life didn't evolve just in this church. It really reflected outside of this church and in the community. And we could stand here and probably talk for the next 2 hours. And Renee, you know we can. But just a couple of names of associations within the Montclair community that we know of Archie. Clearly, the Montclair Clergy Association. When we talk about Cope Center for those who need help. When we talk about Home Corps, who's providing housing for people who need it. When we talk about the Montclair Civil Rights Commission and their role in maintaining the integrity of this town. Concerned African American Parents, NAACP, and there are others and others, but there's one organization that I would like to acknowledge, and that organization is Million Man Montclair. Let me ask, I know that there are several members of Million Man who are here today. I'd like to acknowledge you, and if you would, please stand. recall that everybody was really excited about going to Washington for the Million Man March. And we went to Washington and we got this charge and we came back excited. We came back to this church under the leadership of Archie Hargrave. There was a photo downstairs that you will see that was taken when this group came back. He convened 100 men who dedicated themselves to being the best that they could in this community. That year they started a Thanksgiving dinner for people who might need to have some assistance, who didn't have someone to have dinner with. It started right here downstairs in the basement. Now, for the 20th consecutive year, while the whole world, the Million Man outside of the States, you don't hear much about, here in Montclair, still alive, still active, and on this Thursday, they will serve a dinner for the 20th time, serving well over 700 dinners to members of this community and surrounding communities. That's a piece of Well, when we talk about Archie and we talk about the honors that he received and the awards that he received and the certificates of appreciation and the proclamations and all of those things that recognized him for the work that he did, he'd always remain humble, and he'd say to me, "Larry, I just do what I do." It was who he was. And I think in that, so it's significant that today, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, that we recognize him and who he was and who he still is in the memory of this church. But I'd like to end this with a really short note and a message for our members here at Trinity. Because as we go through this time period where we are looking for a new pastor, I'd like us to think about what we do and see the world through the eyes that reflected the vision of Archie Hargrave. I'd like to see us continue to place the importance of engagement with the community that builds bridges that reflect the integrity of Archie Hargrave. And I'd like to see us focus more and have faith and do what we do with a sense of purpose from Archie Hargrave. So for 13 years under Archie's leadership, and him being this beacon for all of us, he left us with integrity, he left us with vision, and he gives us the challenge to move forward with a sense of purpose. So as we do that, I say to you, WWA